Steve Dangle here on the SDPN YouTube channel, and we are going to walk through my 2024 Stanley Cup Playoff bracket. 32 team league, 16 teams make it to the playoffs, 8 series to start. And we're not just picking the first round, no. Although we will have our series previews for all 8 first round series up on the SDPN YouTube channel, which is where you are. Yeah, I know the string hit me in the eye. Shut up, we're not talking about that. Here's how I think it's gonna go. Let's start in the East. No, we're not starting with that one. Stop making you wait. We will start with the winners of the Eastern Conference, the winners of the NHL's regular season as the President's Trophy champions, or whatever you want to call them. Feels like the President's Trophy would matter in other sports. It just, in hockey, everyone's like, okay, so you won it, and then they wear the thing like an anchor around their neck and crumble in the playoffs. 2 years out of the last 5, a team has set the wins record, won the President's Trophy, and then lost in the first round. The New York Rangers didn't set the wins record, so maybe they'll be okay. As the reward for winning the President's Trophy, the New York Rangers will be taking on the Washington Capitals. We have the strongest playoff seed in the entire league versus one who squeaked in at the last moment. The Washington Capitals had 91 points. That is the fewest by a playoff-bound team by a wide margin. Even better, and I'm sure you heard this already, the Washington Capitals were a minus 37 on the season, and it was like that pretty much throughout. Geez, that's got to be some kind of record. It is! It's ridiculous that they made it, but they made it, so good for them. The Rangers had 55 wins and 114 points. The Capitals had 40 wins and 91 points. How are the Capitals going to overcome that? Well, one of the ways they can overcome that is be super hot going into the playoffs. Were they? Yes and no. They're 4-4-2 in their final 10 games heading into the playoffs. They did win 3 straight to get there, though. But I mean, the Rangers won back-to-back games and were 7-3 in their final 10. Okay, well, then the Washington Capitals got to have a really hot goaltending. Charlie Lindgren, he's got to steal the show. He's been very, very good for the Capitals all season long. On the other end of the ice, some bum named Igor Shesterkin. Well, then it's got to be high-end talent. I mean, Alexander Ovechkin became Alexander Ovechkin with about a third of the season to go. Ended up crossing 30 goals somehow. It's ridiculous. He was second on the Capitals in scoring with 65 points. Dylan Strome was first with 67. The New York Rangers, on the other hand, had 5 guys with more than that, and Artemi Panarin, with 120 points, had nearly double. Who are the 5? Glad you asked. Artemi Panarin, Vinny Trocheck with 77, Chris Kreider 75, Adam Fox, a defenseman, with 73, and Mika Zibanejad with 72, and that's like low for him. Worth noting, Alexis Lafreniere had more goals than Zibanejad, which is bad for Zibanejad with 26. Lafreniere had 28? Easy, kid. Listen, it's awesome the Capitals got there, and they're going to empty the tank. This might be their last shot at it, although they do have some young pieces. It'll be good to get them experience. I just say that because John Carlson, Alex Ovechkin, you never know. Man, after getting embarrassed in the first round last year by the New Jersey Devils, I just have a really hard time seeing the Rangers faltering again. There are no bad teams in the playoffs, and there's upsets all the time, but I have the New York Rangers winning this in 5. Next, the other division-winning team in the Eastern Conference, the Florida Panthers, taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Listen, I didn't want the Leafs to play the Bruins either, but this is the trade-off, and I think the hockey world at large is better for it. Leaf Bruins is better entertainment for the drama. Panthers versus Lightning? Oh yeah! Dude, it's 2 really strong teams in Florida that hate each other. Like, hate each other a lot. Dude, there were only 4 points that separated the New York Rangers from the Florida Panthers, and they were a huge 4 points because it was the difference between playing against the Washington Capitals, who barely squeaked in, and the Tampa Bay freaking Lightning. Tampa enters the playoffs 5-4-1 in their last 10. The Florida Panthers 6-3-1, which isn't that great, but they won their final 4 games, including just smoking the Leafs. They wanted to take the Atlantic Division away from the Boston Bruins, who should have had a tap-in for the Atlantic, and they did. Dude, this is going to be such a violent series. The Florida Panthers have so many guys who will just make your night miserable. Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk, obviously, Ryan Lomberg, a bunch of guys on D. Funny, I was thinking of all the guys who fight, and that's why I left out Nick Cousins. The Tampa Bay Lightning, on the other hand, Nikita Kucherov is like one of the most underratedly dirty players in the league. And honest to goodness, when he got his 100th assist in the final game of the season, he should have been suspended because of that very whack intentional elbow against Tom Wilson. That is a dude willing to elbow Tom Wilson in the face. Imagine what he'll do to you. Not to mention Austin Watson, Tanner Jeannot, a bunch of heavy guys. There's going to be a few X factors here. Playing at their absolute best, Andrei Vasilevskiy should eat Sergei Bobrovsky alive. Last year, Sergei Bobrovsky was absolutely unbelievable in the playoffs, and he had a decent season with the Florida Panthers. Anthony Stolarz, by the way, one of the most underrated goalies in the league this season. And Andrei Vasilevskiy has been good. He hasn't been his usual dominant self. He was not solid in the first round against Toronto last year. What version of him are the Tampa Bay Lightning going to get? What version of him are the Florida Panthers going to face? I like Tampa's talent and spread of the talent more than I like Florida's. I think a lot of this is going to come down to how do you staple Barkov to Kucherov as much as possible? I think this is going to be a dogfight. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be vicious. I have a hard time picking a winner, and I know I already picked them on this channel. I don't even remember who I picked. I'm going to say the Florida Panthers pull this off. They made it to the Cup final last year. You can't disrespect them like that. The Panthers win in 6. For our next series, I'm still going to make you wait. No, we're going to go back to the Metro, the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the New York Islanders. And too many people have been writing this off as a boring series. You're not paying attention. Carolina Hurricanes are somewhat of analytical darlings and have been for a long time. The New York Islanders are coached by Patrick Waugh. You know that, right? Like, yeah, a lot of the personnel and the jerseys and stuff are the same. Their coach is Patrick Waugh. We might get a fight between him and Brindamore by the end of the first period. Not to mention, what if I told you this series was a battle of the two hottest teams in the NHL? This is the hottest series going into it. The Hurricanes are 7-3 in their final 10 game of the season, and they're not even the hottest team. It's the Islanders, 8-1-1 en route to barely squeaking into the playoffs? No, convincing. Yes, they only had 94 points. That wouldn't have even gotten the Islanders into the playoffs in the Western Conference, but they're not in the Western Conference. They're in the East, and they soared up the standings and stayed there. Obviously, the Islanders have Ilya Sorokin, and they have the New York Islanders personnel. It's solid defense. Noah Dobson being in and out of the lineup and potentially injured, that definitely complicates things for the Isles. So my prediction for this series comes with a bit of an asterisk because, I mean, that's one of the most underrated defensemen in the entire NHL from this season, and we don't even know what percent he's at right now. The Carolina Hurricanes are just a ridiculously deep, ridiculously solid team with no real weaknesses. They have a little bit of the jack of all trades, master of none thing going on. Like, I think a lot of other teams have better high-end talent than the Hurricanes. Few teams have the balance that the Hurricanes have, though, all through their decor, all through their forwards. But the big X factor there is, what are you going to get out of the goaltending? Freddie Anderson has been fantastic, and also Freddie Anderson has barely played. I think you look at the Hurricanes, 111 points, and the Islanders 94, and you go, you're wasting your time, Steve. Just say the Hurricanes win. But to me, that's like talking about the Edmonton Oilers and counting the first chunk of the season with Jay Woodcroft. They're not the same. Sure, they wear blue and orange, but they got rid of the coach and got better. Oh, there's a lot of parallels. For how ridiculously good they've been over the last month or so, and just the change, I can't believe I'm saying this, the Islanders in 7. Now the Schadenfreude moment you've all been waiting for. The Toronto Maple Leafs take on the Boston Bruins. Neither team comes into the playoffs as anything special, really. The Leafs were 5-4-1 in their final 10. The Bruins 6-4. Both of them lost their final 2 games. If the Bruins had won either of their final 2 games, they win the Atlantic. If the Leafs had just held a 2-0 lead against the Florida Panthers, they guaranteed that they play the Florida Panthers. Leafs didn't win. Bruins didn't win. Leafs get the Bruins for the 4th time in 11 years. And 3rd time since 2018. That's awful. Plenty of question marks all around. The Leafs finally cracked the barrier of getting through the first round last year. They got destroyed in the second round. The Boston Bruins won 65 games last year, had a 3-1 series lead, and failed. Failed hard. Series goes to 7, and oh, hey, we have the lead in Game 7. Blow the lead in Game 7, lose it in overtime on home ice, and that was the last moment of Patrice Bergeron's hockey career. Are you kidding? Bergeron and Krejci leave? Your top 2 centers are Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle? You stink! Nope. 47 wins anyway, and Jim Montgomery, who won the Jack Adams Trophy as Coach of the Year last year, might deserve it more this year. The Leafs, on the other hand, a pretty different version of the Leafs from half a decade ago, the last time they played the Boston Bruins. There's still a lot of skill there, but the young kids, they're a little older now. And a lot of them play a little bit more like grown men. Auston Matthews went from one of the better young goal scorers in the league to the best goal scorer in the league. Yes, ahead of David Pastrnak. If David Pastrnak was better at scoring goals, he would have scored more goals than Auston Matthews, and he didn't. And a big priority for Brad Treliving, new Leafs GM this summer, was to get more snot, and they did. Tyler Bertuzzi, who had 10 points in 7 games with the Bruins last playoff run, Max Domi, Ryan Reeves in there, Joel Edmondson, who's just miserable to play against in the playoffs. Oh, and no Zdeno Chara for the Boston Bruins this time. That's interesting. Yes, he was slower in 2019, but he was still allowed to murder you. Listen, the clear advantage in net goes to the Boston Bruins. Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark might be both better than any goalie the Leafs have. Ilya Samsonov's been absolutely fantastic back half of this season, except for his final 2 games, which has a lot of people worried. Listen, I love this Leaf team and how they're built. I love the new setup of the lines, spreading out Matthews, Marner, and Nylander on 3 different lines. I think is going to be really difficult to contend with for the Boston Bruins. That being said, you look at the Leafs on paper, you look at the Bruins on paper. If games were decided on paper, the Leafs would stomp them. But the games are not decided on paper. The Leafs are 0-4 against the Boston Bruins this year. Okay, technically 0-2. 2 of those games went to overtime. Dude, the total goals for were 14-7 in favor of the Bruins. I think the Leafs are an extremely good team. This is the worst possible matchup for them. Any team in the league would have been a better playoff matchup than this. I hate this. I don't like this. I want to be proven wrong very badly. Bruins, in 7. Western Conference. Let's do it a little differently in this one. We're going to start in the middle with producer Drew's team, the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Winnipeg Jets. And I know he's loving that. Dude, the Jets are 7-0 in their final 7 games heading into the playoffs. And speaking of 7-0, that was the score the last time the Jets played the Avs. The Jets stomped them into a powder. The Avalanche, surprisingly, the coldest team out of all 16 teams to make the playoffs, 3-5-2 in their final 10 games. Dude, this is tough. Like, who wants to play against Cale Makar in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Nobody. Who wants to play against Nathan McKinnon in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Nobody. And you know who you can add to that conversation because he's really underrated? Mikko Rantanen. No one wants to play against that guy in the playoffs. Horrible. That being said, oh boy. Not only are the Jets hot, but they made some really good additions at the trade deadline. Although, I like what the Avalanche did too. Sean Walker, I low-key like Yakov Trenin, Casey Middlestat. But the Jets have been one of the best, if not the best, defensive and goaltending teams in the NHL all season long. And what did they add? Offense! Connor Hellebuck in the way he's played this season versus Alexander Georgiev in the way he's played this season. Oh boy, it's just an easy matchup to pick. I hate to do it because I think the playoffs are way more fun with Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar in it. You never know, but I think the Winnipeg Jets are going at least to round 2. Jets in, let's say, 6. Now, how's about we continue with the West? You're the LA Kings. It's the last game of the season. You're playing the Blackhawks. The Golden Knights are playing the Ducks. If Vegas wins, they lock up Edmonton, and that's who they play in the first round. But if they lose and you win, you lock up the Edmonton Oilers for the 3rd year in a row, and they beat you the first 2. So what happened? The Kings leapfrog the Vegas Golden Knights to get their 2nd chance at revenge, at redemption over the Edmonton Oilers. See, I think the Edmonton Oilers are very simple. I think we all understand the Edmonton Oilers. They had a very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde season where they were just brutal at the beginning of it. They fired Jay Woodcroft. They sort out some things. Connor McDavid turns into Connor McDavid at the speed of light. And they're dominant. They're an incredible team basically the rest of the way. They went from one of the last place teams in the NHL to a very comfortable playoff spot. The LA Kings, on the other hand, are Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. These dudes cannot decide what they are. What they've been most recently is good. Another team who fired their coach and got good after being bad, and then we're good, and then we're bad. I keep talking about high-end skill in these series. I mean, it all comes down to how well the LA Kings shut down Connor McDavid. Leon Draisaitl as well, Zach Hyman, obviously. You shut down the guys who do the most passing in the forward group, that'd be McDavid and Draisaitl, and then you can cut off guys like Hyman, maybe a little bit. Then you gotta contend with Evan Bouchard. I keep looking at the Kings like, oh, well, there's center depth. Anze Kopitar, yeah, he's still pretty good, but he's getting up there. Philip Deneau, he's still pretty good. It's McDavid, though. Pierre-Luc Dubois was a guy I looked at in the offseason like, okay, that could be a problem for Edmonton. He's been awful. Cam Talbot has been a revelation for the LA Kings. He's been very good. Stuart Skinner, well, he's had a season a lot more like the LA Kings, actually. Good, then bad, then good, then bad, then good, then bad. It's more like a nightly basis thing where he can straight up steal you a game or allow, I don't know, like 9. The Oilers are going to be a tough out, and I mean that literally tough. They are a mean team, and their defense is just awful. But their offense is so ridiculous that it might not matter. I really like the LA Kings. I think they're a good team. I just have a hard time seeing them getting past the Oilers. I think they win 3 straight. It's the Edmonton Oilers I'm taking in this one. We will say in a dramatic Game 7. This series is so unfair. The Dallas Stars take on the Vegas Golden Knights. There's a legitimate argument this could be, at minimum, the Western Conference Final in terms of quality of hockey, or the Stanley Cup Final in the first round. Because you have the Dallas Stars, who finished a point shy of the President's Trophy. They're a ridiculously jacked up, juiced team. Just juiced. And your reward for winning the Western Conference is the Vegas Golden Knights! The reigning Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights, who get everyone back. Mark Stone is back. They got Noah Hannafin. They got Tomas Hertl. Jonathan Marchessault is somehow even better from when he won the Conn Smythe. Dude, that sucks. That sucks so much for Dallas. And you might look at the point system and go, oh, the NHL needs to change the point system. This would be the 1 versus 8 matchup. You just have the worst luck in the universe, I guess. The Stars are big. The Golden Knights are big. The Stars are mean. The Golden Knights are mean. Stars have depth, a lot of depth. 9 guys with 50 or more points. Vegas has a lot of depth. They're kind of known for, like, not really listening to the salary cap all that much. And they're both really, really good. Both teams have gotten some good goaltending this season. Both teams have gotten some bad goaltending this season. Depends on when you watch. Dallas is a really, really good team. Oh, but so is Vegas. Dallas Stars in 7. I'm saying it right now. Dude, how do I have both the Hurricanes and Golden Knights bowing out in the first round? Wrapping up the West, this is a hotly contested one. The Vancouver Canucks taking on the Nashville Predators. 2 teams who have had really good seasons. 2 teams who have had really good stretches since the trade deadline. 2 teams who really underwhelmed heading into the playoffs. The Canucks finished with a okay 5-4-1 record in their final 10. The Predators below 500, 4-5-1. I don't know, maybe the magic of the U2 streak is just over. This is going to be a fascinating series. I don't think the Canucks, win or lose, are going to have a good time. The Predators are not better. Like, they're not more skilled than the Vancouver Canucks. And that is why they're going to try to beat the crap out of them. They're going to forecheck those young defenders, Quinn Hughes especially, into the ground. The Canucks do have some guys with an abundance of playoff experience, but they also got a lot of young guys. A lot of guys who have gone on decent playoff runs, but they were in front of no people in 2020. You know what? The Preds aren't that old either, to be fair. Like, they got a lot of guys. There are going to be a lot of people in this series playing their first playoff hockey. And usually, if that were the case, I'd be saying, oh, there's going to be a lot of goals, except it's UC Saros versus Thatcher Demko. I think those two are going to alternate nights, driving their opponents nuts. I can almost guarantee there's going to be at least one game each where the goalie will make over 40 saves. The guy I got my eye on for the Vancouver Canucks, Elias Lindholm. Dude, they kind of paid a lot for you. You gotta pay dividends here, man. As for the Nashville Predators, Philip Forsberg is just one of the most underrated players in the league. He does not get his flowers nearly enough. He is lethal. I want to know who's gonna get stapled to that guy. Who's gonna be taxed with shutting him down. The Predators have a shot. This will be a good series, but I'm going to give this to the Canucks in 6. Now we move on to round 2, starting with the Eastern Conference semifinal. I have the Rangers beating the Capitals and the Islanders getting an upset over the Carolina Hurricanes, setting up, and this is a lot of fun, New York, New York. The Rangers versus the Islanders. Oh, dude, this rules. Oh, dude, this rules. Similar to their first series, I see the New York Islanders starting with a fight between Patrick Roy and Peter Laviolette. Now it's the second round. This should be tighter hockey, right? All right, we made some mistakes in the first round, got acclimated to playoff hockey, right? Nope. I think the atmosphere is going to be so completely bonkers in both buildings that it's just going to be a mistake fest, despite the fact that both teams have incredible goalies. This is basically a battle between, like, Team Russia. I was about to say they're number 1 and number 2 goalies, but I forgot Andrei Vasilevsky exists. They kind of got a lot of good goalies now. They didn't really before. They had, like, one. Now they got all of them. Listen, I'll make this one nice and simple. They're both incredible teams. The New York Rangers firepower will win out in this one over the New York Islanders. I had the Islanders conquering the Hurricanes. I am not going to lose my mind and say that for a second series in a row. I already know producer Drew is mad at me. New York Rangers, and I'm going to will this one just for the good of hockey to go to 7. New York Rangers in 7. In the Atlantic, we set up a rematch of the first round last year. The Boston Bruins with a chance at redemption over the Florida Panthers. No Bergeron this year, that is true, but the Bruins did pretty well without Bergeron in last year's series. The problems kind of arose when he came back. Not saying it was his fault, but he couldn't be nearly as effective as you would expect Patrice Bergeron to be because he had a herniated disc. You need your back, man. I think 2 things really sunk the Bruins last year. Number 1, the injury to Patrice Bergeron, and number 2, their injury in net. Linus Ullmark was hurt and playing hurt, and they didn't move off of him soon enough to go to Jeremy Swayman. They're not going to make that mistake again. I mean, they're probably going to go with Swayman out of the gate, right? Honestly, like, as great as the Panthers were last year, the Bruins have a healthy goalie throughout that series. They win. All they would have had to do was win game 5. It would have been over in 5. 5 was more games than people were willing to give the Panthers last year. Now, the Panthers are a way better team. Love the depth add with Tarasenko. This is going to be a statement series for Brad Marchand. He's the captain now, and he's going to want to put his stamp on the team. I think the Boston Bruins are going to win this one. Oh, I can't just say 7 for every series, but they're so good. I'm going to say redemption in 7, and the Bruins take it in Florida. Now, I'm just looking at my West picks and going, oh, that's boring. It's 1 versus 2 in both of them. It ain't boring, though. No, it's going to be unreal hockey. Which one should I talk about first? I just realized I also have all 3 Western Canadian teams advancing, which, of course, guarantees at least one Canadian team in the Western Conference Final. Who do I got? Well, we got the Vancouver Canucks taking on the Edmonton Oilers. This is, first of all, going to be the best thing that ever happened to Sportsnet. Like, even better than the Battle of Alberta series, which was fantastic. I think what we're going to be reminded of in this series is these 2 teams don't like each other either. This series might result in most fights in the stands per capita in NHL history. Well, no, okay, people used to be wild. I'm going to say in the salary cap era. I think the Canucks are going to earn a lot of respect in round 1 with their round 1 victory. Oh boy, the Oilers, man. I think there's going to be a lot of goals. The Canucks are going to be able to score goals against Edmonton. There's going to be some ridiculously high-scoring games. Think game 1 of the Battle of Alberta where the Oilers erased a 6-2 lead, but Calgary ended up winning 9-6. I think there's going to be at least a couple carnivals like that in this series. I just have a hard time picturing the Vancouver Canucks locking down all the weapons that the Oilers have. The Canucks might have more weapons. The Oilers' weapons are even better. Willing it into existence, Oilers in 7. I know I keep saying 7. It's more fun. Lastly, for the second round, the Dallas Stars taking on the Winnipeg Jets. This is difficult for the Jets to contend with, man. Their bread and butter is stopping goals, and they play a great system. Rick Bowness has them just working. But the Stars having this many weapons, I don't know how the Jets horses lock that down. And the Stars, I think, are going to be able to lay a beating on these guys. And the Jets have had to contend with a bunch of injuries down the stretch. I mean, every team has to deal with this, but the Jets are probably going to have a bunch of players not at 100% when the playoffs begin, let alone when the second round begins. I mean, Connor Hellebuyck's in the series, so you don't put anything past them, but I really like the Dallas Stars, man. The Stars in 6. Eastern Conference Final, an original 6 matchup. These are hard to pull off this deep into the playoffs, but we did it. The Boston Bruins taking on the New York Rangers. First of all, a battle of the gardens. Madison Square against TD. Just two really good barns to watch hockey in. Well, I've heard. I've seen several games in TD Garden. Those were eventful. I tried to see a game in Madison Square Garden, and I bought fake tickets outside the arena. They wouldn't let me in. I don't want to talk about it. It was a long time ago. I was stupid, all right? It was against the Panthers, too. And not like the Panthers now. You're like, oh, that's good. No, it wasn't at the time. The Panthers being like good and relevant is relatively recent. They were awful. I'm still sad about it. This, to me, is going to be the most perfectly watchable hockey there is. Just a little something for everyone. It's not just a run and gun fest if you like the rough stuff, and it's not just a punch 'em up contest if you like the skill stuff. Both teams just have a great mix. They really do. I think you sort of think of the Boston Bruins being the older, more experienced team. Not really true. They have a bunch of guys who are a little bit older and have a lot of experience, but the New York Rangers have had some runs. Last year wasn't one of them. But this is a really good team and a really good mix. I know we talked about judging the Boston Bruins on paper, and it's just not a thing, but on paper, I just like the Rangers a little bit more at basically every position. I have the Rangers winning. I'm not going to say 7. I want to say 7. I will say 6. Western Final is the toughest to call, to the point where I don't even have an answer right now. I guess I'm going to have to come up with one by the end of this. The Dallas Stars taking on the Edmonton Oilers. You know what, man? The Oilers are great, obviously. They're tough, obviously. They do a lot of things well, obviously. I think this is where it ends. Can Dallas contain Connor McDavid and company? I don't know. Can the Oilers contain what the Stars have offensively? No. It's just straight up no. They can't do it. It's not... I was really surprised they didn't go out and get more defensive help at the trade deadline, honestly. I don't hate what they did, like Henrique and Carrick to get a little tougher, and you land on that Perry signing magically. It's just, you did so well with Ekholm last year. How don't you add to that, man? Stars are going to win this one in 6. So now we have a Stanley Cup final of the Dallas Stars taking on the New York Rangers. And it might seem like a cop-out to have the first and second place team in the regular season play against each other in the Stanley Cup final. It's not about that. Dude, the Dallas Stars are built like the last team you would want to play against in the playoffs. Big, mean, absolutely everybody can score. They got a goalie who can steal some games, and they got a D-core that can drive you nuts. Miro Heiskanen is just gonna play so much. But the New York Rangers can do a lot of those things. You got Miro Heiskanen, all right, we got Adam Fox. You got Jake Ottinger, all right, we got Igor Shesterkin. You got 9 guys with 50 or more points. Okay, well, we got 6. Between the Stars and Rangers, there are going to be 15 players who scored 50 or more points this regular season. With a little bit of an asterisk, because Jason Robertson led the Stars with 80 points. Panarin led the Rangers with 120. Panarin had 40 more points than Robertson. Now, I might have picked the top 2 teams in the NHL to meet in the Stanley Cup final, which obviously means I got the Rangers winning it all, right? Wrong. The Dallas Stars are going to be too much for everybody they come across. The Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup in Game 6. So there it is. You have my bracket. If you'd like to join the SDPN bracket challenge, link in the comments down below. Password is Dangle. I'm gonna wreck all you scrubs anyway with my really stupid. I'm not gonna get out of the first round. I'm dumb. But now they got to play the games. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe to SDPN if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Subscribe to SDP VIP and SDP VIP ad-free. It helps out a small business, and there's something in it for you.